guys, we're back. And I have to tell you that I have been looking through your slides. Well, first, I spent the entire morning researching my mud skipper. And then I spent the entire afternoon, obviously, I took the dogs for a walk, looking through your slide presentations. And I'm telling you, I'm so excited about this project. And I'm so excited that I'm kind of getting used to looking at assignments through Google Classroom. Now, for this next part, we want to continue our working on our slideshow. I have no idea how to do that with you turning in the same slideshow over and over. So you'll notice that when you go to my comments, and I've been leaving you comments, that I didn't click return. And I don't know if I should or not. So if one of y'all or many of y'all could get on my Google Meets tomorrow morning at 9, we can kind of go through how that's going to work. I'm not sure how to continue with me continuing to give you points, but I want to let you know what's the next step for you to work on your slideshow. So right now you have a title slide. Some of you have hilarious title slides, and I completely appreciate that. So again, Muddy Mud Skipper. Next, I added a table of contents slide. So I'm not sure how to share this with you. Maybe what I can do is share the new slides and you can just copy and paste them into yours. But at this point, what you have in your slideshow is on slide 3, because this is slide 2. So slide 1 was our title. Slide 2 is this table of contents. And so this way we can keep organized and you can kind of keep a checklist to make sure you have everything. You have the common name on the next page, the biological classification, the description, and then I added a place for details, and I'll let you know about that. And then I'll fill in what the additional pieces you need for tomorrow. So there's the common name with a picture, and most of you did that perfectly. The biological classification, I noticed a couple of things that I want you to pay attention to. Number 1, I noticed that your genus and species, some people use the common name. Like I noticed for a couple of people, for species, you put yeast. Yeast is the common name, not the biological species name. The other thing I want you to notice how my genus is capital and my species is lowercase. That is intentional. Remember the video that we watched the other day with Carl Linnaeus, who did the biological classification? His genus and species name is italicized, and I didn't do that on this slide, so I should go back and do that. And this particular species would be P. Modestus. P capital is the genus and Modestus is the species. So we'll talk more about that and I will help you figure that out and so you can fix your slides. The description page, you've already seen my description page. Your description pages, the ones, those of you guys that have turned that in, looks great. Details. So what I want you to add to this slide is what information should we know about the organization in the family? And here's why. I found when I was studying my specific mud skipper, that P. modestus, this here, that it got really confusing because there are actually 19 living species just from the genus Periophthalmus. So I thought, man, it's going to be really hard to just find information about P. modestus. So I do want to point out that if it gets super specific and you're having trouble, just talk about the genus. Some of you are studying a lion, and the lion is going to be super easy to find information on. Some of you are studying some organisms that are more difficult. Less people have studied them. When I started researching for my mud skipper, you guys, there's not many scientific papers, which tells me, guess what you guys should study for your PhD? Mud skipper, that would be awesome. So what I want to tell you is, if you can find out information on your specific species, great. If you can't, go back to the genus level. If you can't, go back to the family level. So this Oxydercidae, there's a lot of information about this family, Oxydercidae. And then under family, there's a few genuses of these mud skippers. And then within this genus, there are 19 species. So I'll tell you why that's important. So next, after your description page, have a detail page. Tell me something. Then at this point, you can add or take, and some of you are making your slides beautiful. Some of you are leaving your slides plain. None of that is, the beautiful, obviously it catches my eye and I look at it, but you know what I'm more concerned about the facts and the details. I added this because I went to some science websites. So archive.org, National Geographic, World Wildlife Federation, those are the sites you want to focus on because somebody's blog on mud skippers, I found out people actually raise mud skippers and have them in a aquarium, and that's weird to me. And I didn't want to use that person's personal blog to find out information because it could be wrong. They're not being vetted by an institution. However, these are the species of Periophthalmus genus. So of my mud skippers, Periophthalmus is the genus, and there's actually 19 species. And this is just to educate the learner that it's a diverse group of organisms. If you think about the species that are alive on Earth, 19 of them are types of this one genus of mud skipper. It's pretty cool. The next slide you're going to have is called global distribution. And when I looked up global distribution, here's what I did. I went to my genus name. So I went back here to my Periophthalmus modestus. And I put in Google Periophthalmus modestus global distribution. I actually typed what I wanted to see. Now I'm searching science stuff all of the time on my computer. So Google sort of was like, oh, this lady wants science stuff. Then I went to a couple of articles. I'll show you this article that I'm reading. This is from a scientist that has studied the natural distribution of mud skippers. And I just read through this article. It wasn't very long. You can see Oxydercine gobies, aka also known as the mud skippers, are distributed broadly throughout tropical and subtropical coastal habitats. So you're going to notice that I've used some of that vocabulary to summarize where my species lives. And then you'll see from my slides here that my global distribution over here in the corner, this is Periophthalmus, but it actually identifies 3 different species. This scientific paper that I was reading had pages and pages of all the different kinds of species in all the different kinds of genuses. We usually call genuses genera, right? Like with that Latin plural, but back and forth, it doesn't really matter to me. So Periophthalmus modestus is in red here. So you'll see the mud skipper that I'm choosing to study is in this area in like sort of Japan, Asia. And that is different than like the Filipino area or the Australian area or, the Southeast Asia area. And if you look at other species, they're all over globally distributed. Now, if you guys are studying yeast, that's going to be everywhere. But see if you can find a map and see if you can find some information on that map. And you'll notice I wrote global distribution, and I guess I could have put of Periophthalmus modestus or of mud skippers. And I wrote, this map shows the geographic distribution of 3 species from the genus Periophthalmus. There was tons and tons and tons of maps. I wrote what this map shows you. If you can't find a global distribution map, it's okay. If it's globally distributed worldwide, then you might want to just say that or provide a worldwide map. The other thing is our global distribution is going to tell us a little bit about habitat. You'll notice just by the global distribution of the mud skipper that it's close to water. And so this fish obviously lives close to water. But I want to be a little more specific than that. I want to tell you about this specific habitat where my organism lives. So I put this slide in here to teach you about biomes. You do not have to include this slide, but you could if you want, and then add that in your table of contents. These biomes represent the different regions of habitat globally really broadly, right? Like if you look at the biome here, where, Colorado, that's the Rocky Mountains, and you can see mountains really specific there. And then the pink is that temperate grassland. And so, Denver, when you look east, is the Eastern Plains. And when you look west, we have the mountains. So my species was over in this area here. And you can see it's sort of like this really weird taiga or tropical. So here down, it's more tropical. So my species that I'm studying needs water. And you can tell I'm still kind of working on the organization of this slide. I'm okay if your slide is just thrown together. It's not perfectly organized. Some of you like to do that as you go along. Great. Some of you want to go back at the end and do this. First of all, I want you to notice how adorable my mud skippers are and how they have these protruding eyeballs and these little tiny mouths. And you remember those pectoral fins that they were using to kind of move around? These are fish that walk around on land, but they're fish. So they do need water. They also gulp water to help transfer that water over their gills so that they can get the oxygen out of the H2O liquid. So that will come more later when we talk about the actual organization of how the systems of the organism works, how the body system works. But right now, for habitat, I have mudskippers live in subtropical to tropical brackish water. And I knew brackish, but I wanted to make sure. Brackish means that's the mix of salty and fresh. And salty and fresh water often mix where there's either a delta or a river coming out to the ocean that the tide kind of comes up into. And the water is not completely ocean salt, not completely fresh. It gets this mixed brackish water. Sometimes we call it an estuary. But my species definitely is warmer, and it needs this mix of salty, this brackish water. So intertidal zones of rivers and coastlines, you'll see them along rivers. In some areas, the mud skippers, and notice I got vague here. I didn't say Peritopthalamus modestus because I was really having a hard time finding a specific picture of that. So I just said mudskippers in general. So if you're studying I'm trying to think of some of the things like the armadillo. One of you picked an armadillo, and I love armadillos, so that's really cool. And there'll probably be lots of information on armadillo. But if there's different species and you want to tell me about the habitat just in general, totally okay. So the habitat of my mudskippers is subtropical to tropical brackish water near or around coastlines. Cool, huh? Now, that's all you need to do for today. Let me recap. At your title slide, you're going to add a table of contents. You have your common name in your picture. You have your biological classification. You're going to double check that your biological classification has the genus and species written correctly. Genus capital, species lowercase, and I'm going to go back and italicize this. I'm actually going to do that right now. So if you just click on it like that and hit the italics button, now it's sort of slanted. That's exactly how we write it. So the biological classification, I'm going to add this as well. We call this organism, according to Carl Linnaeus, P. modestus. And that P is the genus capital letter, and modestus is the species name, and it's italicized. So my study organism is P. modestus. Then you had your description slide. Then you had a details slide. So when I came back up here, slide number 6 was details. And the details can be just something that you needed to add to make me understand how your organism fits into either other genera, other genuses, or other species. And then for page 7, we had some photos of the diversity. So I'm going to put diversity photos, and you can just copy and paste those for Google. Page 8 is going to be the global distribution. So you are going to make sure that you're going to research global distribution of yeast and try to find a map. And then all you need to do is put that map on your slide with a short caption of what that map is showing. This Biomes of the World was just for education for you, so you do not need to include this slide, but you do need to include the habitat slide. Where does your organism typically live, and what is that habitat like? Is it cold? Is it warm? So you want to include things like temperature, rainfall. Those are the two main conditions that we can like vegetation. So you're going to include what is it like to be there normally, not what's it like today, but normally what's it like. And so your slide number 9 is the general habitats. And we'll put general. At the end of today, you will have 9 slides in your slideshow. It's going to feel real, real good when we get this going and keep learning more. So in addition to what you already have, please add those. I, again, am not 100% sure of how to keep grading what you're doing other than just keep adding to it. So we'll brainstorm that tomorrow. It was great talking to you, and I'll see you soon.